The Marsh King's Daughter. It's a thriller about the daughter of a kidnapper who fears for herself and her family when her father breaks out of prison. So in this movie, we follow Helena Holbrook, played by Daisy Ridley. She was born and raised in the wilderness until she was about 10, then found out that her father actually kidnapped her mother and kept her there in the deep woods all those years. Helena and her mom become free, and the father, Jacob Holbrook, played by Ben Mendelsohn, gets arrested. Time jumps forward many years, and we see Helena living her best life with a husband and a daughter. Of course, that is disrupted when her father, nicknamed the Marsh King, breaks free from police custody, and she is deeply troubled knowing that he is certainly coming for her. So when we first see them in this movie, they're still living off the grid and in the wilderness. We see her learning survival skills from her dad, and honestly, it seemed like they had a really good relationship at the beginning of the movie. Like, I found it very compelling the way that he actually cared for her. Of course, we know that the circumstances of her being there are very dirty, but it's hard not to recognize that they were very close, and that becomes more apparent when her and her mom get away from him. We time jump about 20 years, and Helena has a husband and a daughter now. Of course, she still has all the tattoos that her dad gave her when she was a kid, and she's still very scarred by the memories of him. We see that because she has come up with these total fabrications about who her parents were and what happened to them. This was actually where the movie started to lose me. Her life seemed very bleak and somber at times where I don't think it should have. I'm not saying that it should have been more fun and upbeat, but it could have seemed a bit more realistic. All of the scenes where she's talking to other people in her day-to-day life felt very unrealistic, especially her husband. The way that her and her husband spoke to each other did not sound like the way that two long-term lovers would talk to each other. The dialogue was painfully generic, and so was their inability to communicate effectively or understand each other. There was also a lot of spoon-feeding in the dialogue. Like, the screenwriter just did not have any faith at all in the audience putting anything together themselves. We see that with some expositional dialogue, but there's also a point in the movie where the two characters are talking about some clues from earlier in the movie, pointing to the Marsh King's return, just to make the movie seem smart in case we missed it when we didn't. That's like the equivalent of making a joke with your friends, and then after they're done laughing, you explaining to them why the joke was funny. Like, how would anyone react to that other than by thinking, yeah, I know. Cinematography was all right, but honestly, it really bothers me when movies use way too many close-ups, and this one does. I don't know if the DP just doesn't know what wide or medium shots are, or if the director just didn't ask for any, but man, do I get tired of back-to-back close-ups on characters that aren't actually emoting. So the main characters, Helena and Jacob Holbrook, carried this movie. For much of it, I thought that Daisy Ridley was only okay, until the scene where she finally, as an adult, sees her father again. I don't think that's a spoiler, by the way, because the trailer made it very clear that that was going to happen. But in that moment, we see and completely understand her feelings. She is emotionally confused because she loved her dad when she was a kid, but she also resents him for actually being a monster. She's afraid of him, but she also missed him, and Daisy Ridley expressed that so well. Ben Mendelsohn was also fantastic as the Marsh King. He perfectly captures the essence of a loving father and also a total monster. It's weird how I can feel both of those ways about that character. So all of the time spent in the wilderness I thought was pretty good, but the majority of this movie where Helena is in society I thought was just not very convincing and really not even slightly thrilling. For a movie about a daughter protecting herself from her survivalist father by using the skills that he taught her, I would have loved to have seen a lot more of that. We see her do it a few times, but not in very cool ways, which was really upsetting because that should have been the hook of the movie. This movie is an adaptation of a book by the same name, which maybe the book was better. I don't know, I've never read it, but I think an adaptation of it could have been great in the hands of a different director because it feels like a good story that just wasn't told very well. Honestly, while this movie holds a lot of disappointments for me, I think I'll go with rating it just fine because I did really like some things about it. This movie is very watchable, it's just not what I would call good. If you read the book and you want to see how this movie adapts that, then sure, you should totally watch it. For the rest of you who haven't read the book, if you don't mind the bulk of the movie paling in comparison to its two leads, then you might enjoy it, but I really don't think you're missing out by skipping this one. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please consider giving it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my reviews of Priscilla and The Holdovers.